since we have Joanne Summerscales here today and Michael Horn, which is awesome. And thank you for being here, both of you. Thank you so much.
Great to see you again.
Thank you. I have a question for you to start up with. If you had the chance to talk to someone who died already, famous or not, who would it be and what would you ask this person? Maybe let's start with Michael.
You mean prior to their dying? Would I ask them, because they probably can't tell me too much?
If you could bring him back, and talk to him, what would you ask this person?
I've never really thought about that, to be quite honest. Since, becoming involved with the study in the Meyer material, it's kind of like, Daniel, it's like people say, oh, I would love to meet an ET, Ptah or Samyazi or somebody. Oh, I just would love to be able to sit and talk with them. And I said, well, the problem for me is with that idea is you can only spend so much time with a person, and in a live conversation, there's always, the incidentals, if you would say, how are you? I'm fine. How are you? And I was thinking, so when you spend time with somebody, you really have to focus on trying to extract the most from the conversation, from getting the most out of it and giving the most to it. When you read the material, when you read the actual conversations that have gone on between Billy and the Plejaren, or when you read Billy's, the teaching, the creation energy teaching, you have an unlimited, only limited by your own time availability, opportunity to get not always your own question that you'd have in the moment, but you get to take in the thinking of the people that you don't have direct access to, whether they're the dead or the living. And we want to know what these people think, or how they think as well. And I think knowing how people think is at least as important as what they think, because we all have opinions, things change. It's like today, this is my opinion or my belief. But when we have the opportunity to take in, I've had the opportunity to sit with Billy over 20 years' time, and it's a wonderful thing, and I'm grateful for it, because he's just an exceptional human being in many ways, and it's beyond the idea, certainly, of UFOs and extraterrestrials, because it's what he embodies as a person who teaches by example, walks his talk. So anybody can have access to a vast body of that information. So this is a redundant way of saying I've never given much thought to sitting with any people who are no longer with us to communicate, because I have access to what I consider to be the best information that any human being would want in terms of learning how to think and how to understand and get information for ourselves that we sometimes turn to more advanced people to get. I'm a fail on that one, I'm afraid.
No worries. Good answer. Joanne, what about you?
Well, I'd like to be a little bit greedy and say I'd like to speak to two people if we could have them, and that would be Edgar Cayce and Nikola Tesla, and to hear what discussions they may have had and what their views are now, with their knowledge expanded from their perhaps intelligent perspective. And I'm not saying that they are the same people or beings now or intelligences now, but they will have an essence of that. So that would be an amazing conversation. And in light of Billy's material, by the way, that's what I'm talking about. I'm, directly related to that. I think that would be phenomenal.
Yeah. My mind works a little bit simpler than yours, maybe, or Michael's. I would love to talk to H.P. Lovecraft or Edgar Allan Poe.
Or Elvis. Ask him about his UFO experience.
Not sure about Elvis, but H.P. Lovecraft works for me perfectly fine. Or Edgar Allan Poe. I like to go into their minds and ask them some questions. Yeah. Well, but before we started recording, Dustin mentioned all that stuff that's going on right now in the world, the war What's your opinion on this topic? What's happening right now? I mean, it affects a lot of countries, and it's really, really crazy thing that's going on right now.
It does seem to be, from all that I can glean, and I haven't purposely made a job of researching every little bit of it, because what there is, it's so obvious to me that this is a global plan, and it's not by just a few. And I think this is bigger than the Earth. For whatever reason, I don't have the answers to where, how the genesis of this. I don't, but I do think it's multi-layered, and I think ultimately it's about the control of humanity and the resources that humans and working on the Earth represents. Humans are an incredible species when we are in our light, in our power. And I'm not talking about any religious sense, but I'm not negating that for those that's relevant for. But when we have that incredible focus and mindset in alignment with, let's say, the highest good that we are or can be, that is also in alignment with the good that it can be for everyone. And at the moment, what we can see is the negation of human spirit, human will, human progress, because everything is being shut down. I mean, just logically, in the UK, and it will be in other places too. And I think I've read where, but I can't think which country it is. We've got this 15-minute city nonsense going on. And there is a backlash to that. People are moving against that. What the hell is that? And it is about stopping people using transport being free, so people are being, observed and monitored at every point, as if we're not already enough. So there's all that. And if you just take an overview of it, the essence of what's happening is that we are being restricted beyond almost breathing itself. And you think, well, what is that? What's that about? From the war, everything is interlaced here. Everything is about this restriction, and about also it is absolutely causing, the suffering of humanity to lose hope, and to think that there is no other option but to follow what the so-called leaders say and do. Having said all that, so that's a snapshot view from my perspective. I know there's lots of depths and layers to it, and there's many different factions and nationalities, but it goes so far beyond this. This is just it's not normal. It's like war has become the norm, and that we're never getting out of that. Well, of course we will, but it may take a while. There is just this avaricious appetite for the human soul, for the human well-being. And I think because we are so incredibly powerful when we are in our creativity, whatever that takes, from the scientist to the artist, and that unpredictability, that lack of being able to quantify anything to do with that. You can't quantify creativity. You might do by the output eventually, but the process, you can't do that. And that's what is not liked. That's what is the threat to whomever these others are that think they can tie down humanity once and for all. They've been trying in the past. They've tried in the past, but they're not. This is their biggest push, and they're failing in lots of areas. And they're making some headway, but they're also failing in lots of areas. So my absolute feeling is that we will overcome this one way or another. I don't know what that looks like, but what was amazing, what was kind of beautiful, because initially, right at the beginning, let's say just of this 3-year segment, was I think it was a couple of years. What really turned things for me were these Canadian truckers, and I know I'm highlighting a specific event during a specific process, i.e. the COVID stuff. As I watched these amazing people, I was born in Canada, and I don't have any other reference to it, the fact that I was born there and spent some early years there, and that's that. I don't have any other contact with it, but I just felt absolutely blessed to feel that I could call that place, that place of my birth, as these truckers just talked about the peace and the love and the care and what they did in showing that, demonstrating that, as well as demonstrating against what these people are doing. And it was incredible. It was with everyone. Everyone was being exhorted to work from their highest perspective. And how difficult is that when you're challenged with batons and riot shields with the police who are not working for the people anymore? That kind of thing. I mean, I was blown away by some. They were just a huge example. There's many more. And I just thought, wow, okay, yeah, this is going to happen. I know, all that's happened about them. Well, a lot that's happened about them since, but that point was a real turnaround for me, because I really wasn't sure about them. And then when I saw and heard how this energy of love and tolerance was the focal point, was their tool of resistance. I mean, it was just incredible. It was quite a kind of defining moment for me, amongst others, but that was a big one. So I think that somehow we're going to prevail and it's going to be okay.
I think the first thing that you said, one of the first things you just said was, you don't quite know how we got here, but, and then you went through all of these aspects. Well, here's the thing. We got here because for millennia, human beings on Earth have given away their self-responsibility.
Yes, I agree.
Power, their lives, especially to outside forces, most of which, of course, were imaginary, and the other existing ones, which would be the terrestrial rulers at any given time. The human beings in mass bought into the idea that they were not responsible for themselves, and that they were less powerful in their own lives, and that they had to turn that responsibility and that control for their lives over to others. So for millennia, we've had delusional, mind-enslaving, war-promoting religions and politics, and people going this way and that, thinking that somehow through whatever means they want to try to employ against true self-responsibility and in denial and ignorance of the law of cause and effect, that things are going to be made better. And politics, of course, is primarily the art of advantage. It does not, as a form of human relationship, deserve any honor, because it's always promoting conflict and advantage. And human beings think that this thing, this person, this law, this whatever that's created is going to solve the problems created by the last law and person and administration or what have you, because again, we've inherited self-irresponsibility, and we don't stand up inside ourselves to determine the course of our own lives. We bring in all sorts of beliefs, we bring in all sorts of hopes and fears, and yet we don't seem to understand how the process of creating our lives, and consequently the destiny and destination of people in the world, works through our thoughts first, the feelings that come up from those thoughts, and then the thoughts about those feelings and the actions or inactions we decide upon. So we're at a time, as far as I see it in history, where there is now a train going down the track that has been set in motion long, long ago. It's not turning around magically. It's not going to be derailed because of any kind of happy thinking that basically tries to replace the understanding of cause and effect. It's going to run its course, and how badly that affects everybody in the world does depend still on the individuals. most individuals in the mass, understandably now, will be fearful or confused, highly excitable. We see everywhere around the world right now something that Billy Meyer had specifically predicted 2-3 years ago, that we will see more and more psychotic behavior. People will be breaking down. They will be acting out and violent and irrational because they will not have the tools, the capability, whatever, to handle that which is being generated as a result of all of our previous history that has been out of balance. That's not to say we don't have the great and beautiful things that human beings create and are capable of. It just means that there's been too little. And we have allowed, we have enabled, we have elected and elevated the least competent in terms of human beings to positions of power. Our country, the US, has an absolutely incapable, as usual, for the most part, human being sitting in the office of the presidency, semi-senile, power-hungry, arrogant, and delusional at the helm. But he is also greatly influenced by those that we can see in the scenes, in our Congresses and Senates and all, and those even more powerful behind the scenes. So it's not to say doom and gloom. It's just like we have to see things as they are. This one of the, I think I would say it's the second principle in the creation energy teaching. First is complete self-responsibility for individual lives. We have to see things as they are. That means we have to learn to be neutral positive. We have to first see things as they are. Then we decide how we will proceed. And rather than some grandiose thing for the world and thinking we're going to save it, best that we do as much as we can to study, to embody the teaching of truth, the teaching of spirit, the teaching of life. And moment by moment, because clearly what goes on around the world, even if it isn't directly in our own neighborhood, so to speak, these swinging waves that come out, some people refer to things as vibrations. Billy speaks about swinging waves, and they are emanating from so many places and so many people that to keep oneself balanced and to have the energies, the swinging waves, if you will, that come out from us, to be balanced, neutral, positive, takes work. It does. So we have to have our priorities straight and to come together whenever possible with like-minded people. In our perspective, people that are involved with the Meyer material, great, but we don't have to exclusively be involved with people who understand or are studying that material if we are basically all trying to come forward into a balanced, loving, harmonious, free place, peace, love, freedom, and harmony. And those cornerstones that are the cornerstones of the teaching anyhow are sufficient for us to form those alliances and empathic and empathetic relationships with each other, either in person or at a distance, and to know that we are all those who are most sensitive, who have aspired throughout our lives one way or another. We've tried to find this or that thing that will be quote unquote spiritual or uplifting, and we've gone through many different paths and systems and beliefs, sure. And the fact is that we can now find that there are people out there who've been on these journeys as well, and we can share with each other just that basic value system and how we will bring it forward and live it in our own lives. That, to me, the past we cannot any longer change. The prophecies are for the most part predictions. Most are now, I won't say all, but most are pretty set in stone. There are external events from the depths of space, like the asteroid Apophis, that unless our scientists wake up, we can do absolutely nothing about. It's coming to your neighborhood more immediately, anyhow, than ours and farther west. But certainly you've got all this war, and the US is salivating for more, and its foolish allies who will all be destroyed by it as well. So I don't know that there's, in the moment, there's more to say about that, but the peace, love, freedom, harmony thing is pretty big. And there is a worldwide Salome peace meditation. It takes place actually 6 times a month. It's 20 minutes long each time. And you don't have to believe in anything. You don't have to buy anything. And you can participate. That information is freely available. According to the information in this case, there's over 3 billion human beings in this extraterrestrial federation that do it on our behalf just to try to help us balance out the shroud of negativity that is just permeating the atmosphere of this planet, the consciousness of too many people.
Well, yeah, I do my own thing too, and now and again when I do link up with a group, as I used to do quite a bit more of that in the past, but do it alone now mainly, but always have an eye out to that, because as you said, it's about self-responsibility. And I become very much aware that if I'm not in the best of humor, or have a something that didn't go well technically, like losing all my work one day, having done 12 hours worth, I kind of get a bit grumpy. So I think, okay, then let's just take a breath and let's just not spread that out. Let's not put that fog out into the world and pull it back. So yeah, not everybody can work from doing that, and often you need the moment to have that little, oh my goodness moment. But I'm surprised by how many people are aware and waking up and doing things just even independently, just privately, personally, to bring stability, as you say, Michael, to try, even if it's to their own field, their own little area and life group. So, and it is important that we do that. One of the things I do, it's just a fun tip, when I have a shower or a bath, I just visualize the water filled with the perfection of life and let that go to every drop and every ocean, right down through the center of the planet, up out again into every living being, rock, tree, whatever, plant, and then out into the cosmos to all those who have good intentions and beyond, to help them and our planet. And also when I'm in my vehicle, I use it as a kind of light plow. I call it like a snow plow, but I just set the intent at the beginning of my journey that this is going to be an engine of light, and that every driver I pass will have some benefit, some whatever it is. I don't know. That's not my business, but just the intention is there. And those two simple things are, I know they have an effect. So I remember hearing an amazing story of how someone did something like that. They saw a roadside accident and they saw this woman and they sent her, peace, love, and light. And this woman was near death. I can't remember if she actually had a near-death experience. But anyway, this person found out where the people had been taken to, and heard that the woman had survived, and went to see them just out of empathy and concern, didn't know them at all. And she reported that she had felt the benefit of what this person had done. I can't remember if it was a male or a female. And that she was aware, because she was just above her body at that time, and she could feel this wonderful wave. And she said it absolutely helped and calmed her in her anxiety, because just because you're out of the body doesn't mean you don't have anxiety. So that was just, a little example that I've heard of and come across.
I want to throw another controversial topic in here. Since Michael mentioned it, do you ever think there will be harmony or peace here on Earth as long as we have religion? I agree with Michael that we have a lot of incompetent politicians out there, no matter what country it is. I'm here in Germany. I mean, watch the news. So, but I think religion, since in all these different religions, we practically believe in the same thing, but give it a different name. And we still fight about it. Do you ever think there will be peace and harmony as long as there is religion out there?
No, I think that we have about 5,000 years of evidence. Billy has said that in the past 10,000 years, there's only been about 250 cumulative years of peace on the planet. And while we can say the Judeo-Christian religions go back 5,000 years. And so clearly the human beings have had a problem with getting along even before we created all these crazy beliefs. But I don't see that it happens. I think what Meyer said, it's going to take another couple hundred years before the religions are gone, finally, when people have enough evidence from the I talk about the survivors, the people who emerge from the rubble, whatever that rubble might be, and how much and how many ever people can emerge from it and recognize that they must never allow this to happen again. And then they start to, understand and realize how they've put off on things that don't exist, the responsibility for their lives, and then let the people who come along who know how to manipulate them through those beliefs time and time again make things worse and help to make things worse for everyone. So I think that it's going to probably be a couple hundred years. Now, it doesn't mean we can't be peaceful, and it doesn't mean we can't live as peacefully as we desire as much as possible. It's a world of 9 billion people. So when we say everybody's completely responsible for their life, that's true. And we have to be honest and say, look, each of us, we're being intersected, if you will, by the swinging waves, the energies of billions of other people. So it's a rather daunting job to maintain one's course, one's vision, one's zeal, one's drive and striving for these things. And we're going to be, buffeted. We're going to have to find our way always back to that center and to the, self-determined destiny that we are pursuing, no matter what anyone else says, providing we also are living in alignment with, the laws of creation. So we're not just wanting to live to amass, needless, excessive amounts, of stuff or prominence, celebrity, things that are utterly useless, really, and that are impermanent, to say the least. Now, we can say that all of life, physical life, is impermanent because all material things pass. But during the physical phase of our lives, we should treasure those things that are still overridingly having enduring value for humankind. And that idea that we, people say, well, we're in our next life, we come back and our next personality. But, there's another part of that we should realize. We, the personalities in this life, we don't experience that. The consciousness and personality of the indwelling spirit that reincarnates experiences it. Now, the overall true essence of us in this spiritual, evolution benefits from the positive of each of the past personalities' lives. And knowing we never woke up in this life saying, oh, I know I was this one and that one and this one. We may believe in reincarnation or we may not, but it doesn't have anything to do with, is it real or not? So if we live, like I've got a bumper sticker, it says reincarnation. Don't worry about dying. You'll live through it. And then someone added that, a friend of mine in Sweden says, and, you're going to come back, take care of this world because you come back to it. So yes, we all come back to it, but not in the same sense that we as the personality. So we have to enjoy, truly, we have to learn to enjoy the richness of this incarnation, of this experience. And in so doing, to live in accordance and harmony with the way the universe laid it all out. The universe doesn't come and give us things, and it doesn't take things from us, and it doesn't punish us. That's all religious thinking. God will bestow upon you, or you'll be dipped in hot lead for eternity if you blow it this time and don't believe in the saviors. No, there are certain immutable laws. It's like the handbook of how something works. This is how it works. The more we can figure out how to live in harmony with that, how to take those laws and apply them in trial and error, the more life works on the individual level and then on the collective level. So religion is still going to be mud for the human development. We have to slog through knowing that it's just mud. It isn't truth. It's not it's not some kind of reward that we're getting from putting up with that kind of thing. But it's a reality. This is what people have done, have created over the past at least 5,000 years, maybe a little more if you want to take into account the, some of the Eastern tradition, religions and beliefs that got handed down through, I don't know if Hinduism is older than that or what have you. Anyway, no, we got to be happy now. We might as well just live it as if we're living in that time that we prefer without being delusional about it. It's more of an inward thing, and we live it externally the best we can.
I also think that religion keeps us from being ourselves, and it restricts us because it gives us rules and orders that we have to live by. And I'm not fine with that. I don't know. What about you, Joanne?
Well, I have an interesting little story, if you don't mind my little vignettes of stories. I put out an album a little while ago called Eclectia, and it was peopled by musicians and singer-songwriters who'd had experiences with ET, mainly positive, mainly life-affirming. The overall arching message really was love is the answer. But I want to tell you this story about Peter Nelson, who's a Canadian. It's an international album with Brits, Americans, and Canadians. And there are little sound bites also on there from a lot of the folks with their songs, just giving the kernel of what that experience was and how it gave them this change of feeling, because this is life-changing stuff, right? And so Peter Nelson, the Canadian, his song was Alien Agenda. And there was a bit of negativity to it. And I was hoping to get over to the States and America, the States and Canada, to interview those parties personally, like I did with most of the Brits segment. And I didn't get to do that. And then I heard that Peter died really, really young, just in September. And I, as a sort of holding thing, I'd taken a short video, a short interview with all of the guys I couldn't get to see personally. And when I listened to Peter's and then I re-edited that, it was amazing. He was telling me that he'd been brought up a Catholic. I mean, died in the wool with all the guilt and all the rest of it, Catholic. Now, he didn't belabor the point, but he, it was clear that was what his experience was. And I'd have to look at the interview again myself. It's only about 15, 16 minutes, something like that, if anybody wants to hear him. And he just talks about how he went to some kind of healing, weekend, something like that, with just whether it's healing with sound and all the rest of it. Anyway, he said he had this absolutely profound experience of, he said, I came out of this healing session or sound healing session, whatever it was. He said, I was absolutely laughing. I couldn't stop laughing. There was all this incredible energy. And he said, and the most amazing thing was, he said that all that guilt and all that horrible, my words, webbing of the Catholic indoctrination, he said it was gone, completely gone. And I felt free, though he hadn't known before he wasn't free. Now, isn't that interesting? I think that's incredibly fascinating. And again, he didn't belabor the point, but he said it was gone. And what a wonderful feeling that was to be free. So fascinating stuff. And, I think if you can take the kernel of the essence of these thinkings and philosophies and not package them in rules and regulations, then, the tenets, like probably Michael would say, that Billy would say, and do unto thyself what you do to your neighbor, what you want to happen to yourself, that kind of thing. I mean, it's pretty obvious, but we don't do that generally. Often we forget, we just don't. And so it's not difficult to be kind. Sometimes if you're not in a good mood, you may not be kind in your words. And, I have to, learn myself to just be more careful, because you just don't want to hurt people for just because of, something's happened to you that set you off on a negative tangent for, 5 minutes or whatever it is. So I don't think, again, you will find peace through religion, but there are certain aspects that can be highlighted, I think, which are the loving elements. I haven't been brought up in any kind of religious dogma either, and I am very grateful for that, because I am a regression therapist just by way of interest, and that has been the most interesting tool of my life, which I still use to support, you know, what I need. And I tell you what, that has been an incredible avenue of investigation through. It was in my late 20s or 30s I started that work, and it was mainly because, you know, I had some anger issues and some other stuff that I couldn't resolve, and I didn't understand, because I wasn't seeing a bigger picture. The regression work and training and all the rest of that I did allowed me to see the overview and get an understanding, and thereby come back into balance with compassion for myself and compassion for others. That's the thing that is lacking now. We seem to have kicked compassion out, and kindness, if we can get hold of compassion and kindness, the two C words, or K and C, then I think we'd be doing well. But yeah, just a little story there.
Since you mentioned, I think you mentioned the Catholic Church. I don't know. Yeah. What do you think? How deep is the Catholic Church involved in everything that's going on in the world right now? I have my own opinion on that, but
it's a funny thing you mentioned that, because I just had seen the other day, again, someone asked Billy about what was going to be the most critical things pertaining to the future and wars and all that stuff. And he said, as I recall, he said China and Catholicism, or China and the Catholic Church. So China will be the next superpower. It's on its way to that. And what's been foretold for the church is its destruction, of course. China will play a part in that at some point, as I understand it from the materials. But no, just something, just a moment ago when Joanna's talking, I thought about this song I have, and I don't have my guitar or anything like that, so I'll just give you a lyric from the first part of it, because this was something that I wrote this years ago, and I don't know where I'll be on the musical scale, but it was like this. If your life has lost its meaning, and you face the world alone, and your dreams, they all are broken, and your heart sinks like a stone, somewhere a voice is calling, and your song will find its mark. Let the melody awaken all the love locked in your heart, and sing that your heart may feel, sing that your wounds may heal, sing with pure abandon, sing to set things right, sing from every mountaintop, sing the song of life. And it goes on from there. And
Lovely.
sometimes when I'm in a pit, I do that one for myself, even if I'm not doing it on guitar, just to do it acapulco, with a guitar. Something about that message for me, because you also need that feeling part to come into alignment with truth, and and reaching out to others. Is like the second verse is, as the song of life awakens, everyone who hears its notes, seek the broken-hearted who like you yearn to be whole. Fill your voice with love's sweet calling, that your song may find its mark. Let the melody awaken all the love locked in their hearts, and sing, So it's just like, that's the reaching out that comes from that feeling level, that deep level. We know the thoughts now, we know some of the information and the hard reality, but we've got to get ourselves to vibrate in an inner harmony with ourselves too.
That was awesome.
Yeah, awesome.
I love that. I love how Joanna, if you've seen some of Michael's songs, and he plays guitar too.
No, I
Really
haven't
good.
actually.
It's really good. No, I like that, Michael. That was really good.
Lovely words. I mean, and so many people are the walking wounded, but not that you can see on the outside. There's no bandages or plasters. It's internal. And, you know, that's one of the reasons that I went and did the regression training and work, because, you know, I could see that if I didn't get myself in check as the personality I am this time, then, you know, it wouldn't be very good. Because I needed to get a handle on some of those issues that were just not, you know, a little bit off center. And I did. And it was an amazing journey of discovery. Really amazing. I'm not saying everybody has to do that. That was my choice and my tool or toolbox for that, you know, road. But yeah, so it is learning to find kindness with others when you really think, wow, you just want to give them a slap, maybe. Speaking personally.
No, guys, I want to crawl a little bit deeper into the rabbit hole I dug before. And we talked about it before we started recording. What do you guys think is the agenda of the world elite, which I think the Catholic Church is part of course? What's the big goal? What do they want to achieve, and do you think they will achieve it?
Well, big goal.
Well, go ahead, Joanna.
Well, I really said a little bit before we started recording that I hadn't realized we weren't recording. But anyway, you know, the control of the glorious spirit of humanity is being, you know, farmed, and that's, to me, that's the goal. Because look, everything is about restriction. Everything is about, you know, pinning down and observing and minimizing the human spirit in all its glory. I'm not speaking religiously there. I'm just speaking in all its many layers of function. They don't want it. They don't like it. And they want everything regulated and monitored, so they know exactly what's going on. And they don't like the unpredictability that everybody's creative. Every human being is creative to one degree or another, whether it's cooking or making a great cup of coffee or being a great artist or singer or whatever. So there is that in all of us, and that's very valuable, along with our emotional well-being and the emotional joy that Michael's song was referencing. There is, that's what they want to stifle. Because if we have that joyousness, if we do have that and express that in any way, whether it's just breathing and feeling great that we're just alive and still here to experience this, or whether it's participating in some event or whatever, doesn't matter. But if we can't have that, if we can't go, if we can't be free, if our wings are clipped psychologically and spiritually and emotionally, then they're trying to, it's like pixelating us. It's like, just so we can't be who we should be. We can't express to our nth degree, should we want to. That's it.
They want to distract you from being conscious. It's my opinion.
Yeah, and anchoring the fear. So many people are in abject fear still. And they're going along with a lot of the restrictions because they're told to. They don't ask questions, and they don't know that it can be different.
That's true. Michael, what is your opinion?
Well, obviously, it's the age-old desire for domination and control by those who are most aspire to the element of power, but don't have it over themselves. They need external control in terms of the way they seem to be wired up or have chosen to live. It's not the spirit. I mean, in terms of the literal thing from the teaching, the spirit is impervious to things. It's the human consciousness that they're trying to enslave and control and even destroy, and thereby to hold back the inevitable evolution towards freedom and great development that ultimately, eventually, all human beings certainly have available in their as the spirit form in subsequent incarnations, unless something very extraordinary happens. But so these are the people that always want to control others. They are directed towards that. Their whole mechanism thrives on that. That's what they're good at. Most are psychopaths, sociopaths of some form or another. And it seems to be a given to a degree of something that manifests with human beings. We probably have on our world an inordinate number and highly overbalanced in the percentages of people who are psychopaths like that. And not all of them have positions of power. We have in our country all the time, you're reading about the ones that are wandering around killing other people, children, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, they can simply be psychotic as well, or both. Anyway, it's this lust for power, for possession, for amassing, for controlling, because that is a reflection of an inner fear and an inner inadequacy that is not conscious for the most part in those people. Those of us who are not in that realm and who are buffeted by the circumstances of life, we might experience fear and anxiety and all that for different reasons. It's not because, or it doesn't result in our, desiring and trying to attain worldly power. We tend to be most people who are not those type of psychopathic, lunatics. We are struggling or navigating through various problems in a real world way that we are trying to move our, let's say, our evolution forward. Those folks aren't doing that. And many of them know, by the way, a lot of people who are that negative and powerful in the world understand certain aspects of the creation energy teaching. What they understand is the striving for something to attain it. They know that part. They know nothing else about the consciousness part, the consequences of violating the laws of, and recommendations of the creation. They don't care about that. In the material, Billy and Patah go into at great lengths things about Trump. Now, this is just, I always like to say, according to the information in the case, things I cannot prove or disprove. And they go into his particular previous incarnations, going back hundreds of years, where this particular spirit form has seemed to have many incarnations of extreme negativity, psychopathy, narcissism, etc. And I'm only smiling because one can't prove it, and one needn't try to justify who he is now that way. But it does seem to be the type of a thing that some human beings are in a lineage of incarnations. Not that it's karma, it's not there. It's just that there's a sequence where this particular pattern arises to whatever degree they haven't gotten over it, I guess, for this world control thing. I mean, here we are in a speck of cosmic lint floating around the universe. Somebody wants to control this, and then reach out into space and control others. And it's a pattern that it apparently takes a very long time to get over, because even the ancestors of the Pleiaren were into that for a very long time. They were Star Wars warriors on steroids, roaming around, enslaving, destroying places, and warring with people. And so it's not like this is the first place this stuff ever showed up. And indeed, many of the so-called gods of our past came from extraterrestrial human civilizations who had this whole domination control thing. And I don't get it, because if you have those capabilities and you start to understand life and the universe and all, while it may be very interesting to go places and times and what have you, it's the reality of life is that inner process, that evolution of consciousness is what Billy says. It's the meaning of life, the evolution of consciousness. So we're just in this place where it's kind of like Neanderthals with techno toys. And, that brings up what's going to come with AI, which is extremely not good for us. And Billy foretold it in 87. He foretold what we're doing right now with this AI direction, which, of course, psychopaths salivate over that type of thing. I mean, imagine the potential for control and confusing the masses and extracting the last bit of whatever. And of course, it's an inevitable development, but we are going to unfortunately suffer greatly for our lack of consciousness, evolution, and development, and let this thing run loose. We run the chance of seeing humankind destroyed by it, literally. That's something else.
Do you think the ones that wants to control us have reached consciousness, or the level of consciousness that we are seeking for? Because if not, why would they try to keep us from reaching consciousness?
Well, they're threatened by it. They understand certain things about consciousness. These are the people, if you take it in the worst case, they are the ones that want to constantly, they do wealth seminars, and those are the ones that are just less psychopathic than those that aren't going to do wealth seminars. They're going to do the wealth thing for themselves, So I'm just making a stereotypical caricature here. It's like those who are, when you look at this pathetic guy, what's his name? Klaus Schwab, it's like a joke. Here's this poor old imbecile with masses of money thriving. He wants to have more control over everything and everybody. And it's just a mess. Would you want to be around a guy like this? He's like a cartoon. So they understand striving. They understand the might of the thoughts, but they don't understand more about the consequences, cause and effect, evolution, the need for balancing the technical, just to make it very simple, technological with the consciousness related. So those powerful beings that came here in the past, those like Jehovah and the Thoth and all these beings that were here setting up the early religions, they had certain consciousness related abilities. Don't misunderstand. They knew how to use their consciousness to do certain things. And they continued to strive for more of that. And they had it in a certain way where they hadn't let their technology destroy them, apparently, so that they could go out and utilize it to enslave and destroy, control others. That's what, in a worst case or in a most likely scenario, would come if this world, especially if the US was going to exist long enough to develop all this technology for space travel. And we don't have space travel now. It's just throwing tin cans around it. It's not space travel. But if we ever got that far and we still had this mentality, well, first of all, if once we ventured outside of the solar system to try to use that, those representatives of this world would be destroyed, and they'd probably come back here and clean the clock, because it's too dangerous to allow this kind of degeneration. This is a degenerate consciousness that we have for the most part in the world. And those of us who strive to be more evolved in consciousness, we're very uncomfortable with that. Doesn't mean we're better people and all, we might have our own stuff, but we're uncomfortable with it because we know it's not the meaning of life. The meaning of life is to amass as much useless crap that you can't take with you. Really? Well, how does that work? So to me, wealth means having what you need, what you determine that you need. And then you find out if those needs are indeed genuine for you. If those are your real needs, then you will also find more than likely that you will attain that. You will get that through right conduct and the help of others, as you are also going to help others who are seeking to get what they need. And all of us can give different things on different levels. So when we recognize, wait a minute, this thing, this life thing, this nature thing is pure abundance. It's love in full expression. Life, love in full expression. It's just overflowing all the time. Life just keeps on lifing, doesn't it? So those who have to try to figure out how to take parts of it and clutch them to themselves to dominate others are small in real consciousness. And they're dangerous because yeah, they've got the danger is they have the techno toys and the masses and the armies to go marching around, and they take, like, our country, US, is becoming bankrupt because the morons in power are sending all this money to the Nazis in Ukraine. And this agenda was developed decades ago, and it's, why even bother going to this point? I mean, you can read it. You can read the pure information. There's writers in Europe who are on it. Oh gosh, Billy's put out, delineated the whole thing. But the fact is that if we focus on the balance, we see things as they are. We're not pretending that they're, something other than they are. So we try to prepare, try to have what we need for ourselves and our families, and how we can help other people. And we don't worry about becoming millionaires and billionaires and miserable people in the process, who immediately, the more they attain, the less they can give of themselves to life. In a way. Now, that doesn't mean that even people we might not like, Bill Gates, Zuckerman, all these people, they give things to the world too. They do. Clearly, we're using some of their creations, right? So it's not that. It's just that the overall thing is that so much good that could be done by people of great means isn't done by perhaps most people of great means. And there are some people of great means who do great things. So it isn't, if you have money, you're bad. No, it's not that at all. It's just that we are out of balance. And those people, you asked your question, they want to control everything and everybody, because inside, ultimately, and it sounds a little touchy-feely, but inside somewhere, they don't have a connection to life. They don't stop and go, wait, I think I'll leave that stuff alone. I got enough of it. Wow. It doesn't happen. So that's my take on it in the moment, anyhow.
I just wondered if nobody minds, if we could go to Billy's pre-life, because I read a little bit of that and about his coming in, and just as you were referencing Trump's reincarnations or previous lives, whatever we want to call those, I wondered if you could give us a little snapshot, if everybody else is okay with that, about Billy coming in at this time, because I think he's about, what is he, 86 now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know that I recall them all, but in terms of the prophets, it isn't Billy, it's that spirit form. It was Enoch, Elijah, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Emmanuel, the real person, since there never was a Jesus Christ. It's so funny, people always send me these things about Jesus. I said, just send me a link to 1 or 2 biographies of a man named Jesus Christ who lived at the time, not a religious book, a biography. There should be dozens, hundreds, and there's none, because that wasn't the name of the man. Another story. And then there was Muhammad. Billy had other incarnations. Mozart is said to have been one. There's another composer in there that somebody else will remember the name right now. It's slipping by me. Supposedly also he was, what is our friend's name from some time? Rasputin was, I think, literally the last incarnation of that spirit form. And so what we learn is that, and Billy has also said, he's had many lives in between, men and women, what have you. His spirit form has had many lives in between. It's just whatever was necessary at that time. And most of them, of course, were not. Most of them weren't prophets or great musicians or, wild-eyed, seers for some kind of, government or royal family somewhere.
I just wondered what it was. Sorry to interrupt, Michael, just bringing in another thread here. I just wondered what it was about this timing that brought Billy in. And I know that, is it Patal and some others, knew he had to come in at this time?
Yeah, my understanding would be that it was long ago determined, because it is mentioned long ago, even Emmanuel and I think Jeremiah, they speak about the prophet of the new time. And that would be, in the case of all the prophets, that would be their a future incarnation of that spirit form. And they knew because the spirit form, supposedly called Nocodemian, was a person billions of years ago who had already gone through the entire process of evolution into the semi-physical, semi-material, then into the lower levels of the spiritual plane in the Arahat, Atharsata level. And it was determined through these higher levels as well that it would be necessary. And it was that spirit form of the Nocodemian spirit form that volunteered, so to speak, to go back into physical incarnation. And that was originally tied into going back to the worlds, Lassen and Lyrian worlds, what have you, where the peoples that this personage of Nocodemian had been the leader over and had helped them establish living in harmony with the creational truths and laws, and they had gone astray badly after he moved on out of the physical realm. And his first task, as I understand it, or the spirit's first personality's task, would be to incarnate and in that system, in that world, and set things right by creating, among other things, getting the people back on the creational path and creating the the peace combat troops, which would then be used to put down all the wildness, the craziness, revolutions, crimes, wars, and all the madness, and get people who had gone astray, because this can happen at any level of evolution. The Pleiaren can't interact with us here. And they have to be very careful because they know that they've worked hard. They've had peace in their worlds 52,000 years, but they could slip. They know that about themselves. They know that that's what happened, obviously, with these, the people who were some of the Syrian ones. And long story, but to keep back to your question. So this mission, this extended mission that would come to Earth beginning about 13,500 years ago, would have these subsequent incarnations, which would be the reincarnation of the same Nocodemian spirit form, enlivening a different prophet each time, who that spirit form would also enliven many other people of more incidental or less prominent or slightly prominent, but not mega important in terms of the prophet lineage to the world. It wouldn't be bringing forward great music, Mozart and maybe other things we know nothing about. So this was the time. And then Svath, who was Billy's first contact person, recognized that, knew that when young Edward Albert Meyer was, infant, and he saved his life by coming in to do some things when the infant was very ill, and he did some medical things so that he would survive because it was necessary. And many things must be part, and we can always explore in a conversation how the destiny, was. But Svath, you read these contacts and you read about Svath, and he was such an amazing, amazing human being. He was regarded, we recently only learned how highly regarded he was by the Pleiaren, and how Ptah, who is Svath's son, is now finding some of the archives that he didn't know existed from his father to read things. I mean, just amazing. But these are human beings. It's just that they focused on, doing a mission. And it's not, there's no magical protection for them. The story, Semyaze had virtually just about a death experience here, and had it not been for more advanced extraterrestrial technologically than the Pleiaren, she would have died from an accident that happened in Billy's office. So these are, this is the story. Many things we can't prove, but we can prove it or reason it through ourselves when we go through the body of information and go, wow, this is just consistent all the way through. We're not asked to ever believe anything, and we can prove it to ourselves. So what's the likelihood that this is true? Well, seems possible. I don't have to believe it. I can just say, well, it's like we have an article, lesson on the blog from a guy named Joe Tisk, who was a national intelligence officer, who I always say with quotes, interrogated me for 3 months. He was a skeptic. He found the Meyer material, thought it was a hoax. 3 months of that, then 5 months after, 8 months total, he comes back and says, it's real, and I'll take on all the skeptics on your behalf. And he delineated, he showed how anybody could determine the truthfulness and authenticity themselves without having to believe anything, just the protocols that you go through if you can think. And it was very refreshing, wonderful to have somebody of a clear mind like that who came at it with guns blazing, ultimately say, real deal.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, do you believe that Billy came here at this time for this, because of this particular yoke that humanity is under just now, and having this body of teachings already produced and done? Do you think that has any bearing at all on his incarnation this time? Just wondered about that.
I would put it this way: since this whole mission was foreseen, and I have questions too. You got like, why did they have to, get things confused with Emmanuel, and it needed, these more prophets? And I ask lots of legitimate questions. I would just say the answer I come up with for the most part about this time and Billy and all the previous prophets were existing at a time when basically they're presenting the same teaching essentially, but there's so few people that can read and write. There's no technology to speak of to disseminate widely. So the ambitious people were the ones in the Catholic Church who grabbed hold and falsified everything and created a religion around it. And of course, this is also true to some degree, of course, of Judaism before that. And then they did the same thing with Islam, because Muhammad was not like a warrior. He didn't intend. He was a defender of women. He didn't marry 9-year-old girls. All this stuff has been so corrupted, but they each brought forward the teaching in the sequence, knowing that the ultimate agenda was there would be a prophet of the new time when the technology would be available. And Billy first foretold the internet and interconnecting of computers in 1958 and all that. It's just wonderful stuff. But they knew that this would be the time when we would be able to get this material out, spread it out into the world. It wouldn't require that Billy, like other prophets, go somewhere and stand somewhere and speak to people who are going to mess it up anyhow and hear different things. And, so yes, they're going to try and mess it up. I mean, there will be people who will try to start false religions over this, claim to be the reincarnation of Meyer. I mean, we're not out of the woods. It's just that ultimately this will prevail. And it's because people don't learn. People are stubborn. They don't listen and learn, that there will be the continuation of the aggression and the destruction, and then the survivors clamber out. And this material will be found by people. It's being preserved all over the world in, disc form, electronic form. So certainly electronic things can go haywire, but books, printed materials, it will be found, because the taste for truth will be it'll be the desire to live in truth, peace, love, freedom, harmony, wisdom, knowledge, compassion, empathy. Because people, there's a saying, people don't change until they suffer enough. We apparently have not suffered enough as a mass. Many of us feel, I got it long ago, I suffered enough. In that sense, I mean, you can always have suffering in life. It's part of it. But needless suffering with stupidity, people who just want to destroy and control, oh gosh, what a stupid thing. So yes, this was part of it, that there would be a seventh and final prophet. Even in the Talmud, it talks about in the new time, the prophet in the far northern country, a simple man who would come forward once again with the teaching of the truth, and the people from the stars would be his allies, and signs in the sky, all that stuff that got fussed around a bit in the New Testament into goofy stuff. So it was foretold. It's long foretold. There's even a little document that precedes all that, the remnants of some kind of a scroll or document in which it mentions Billy, as a prophet of the new time. It's there. It's all there. And we don't even have to believe that or, accept it. We don't have to accept it. We just, because it's not about Meyer. And he tries to tell people that here's the teaching. This is the teaching of creation, the original one. And it, like in the book, The Goblet of the Truth, all 7 prophets' versions of it, if you will, speaking in the language of the times for people to understand. That's all. Here it is, folks. Now, Meyer is wise enough that he does author things in spiritual teaching, but he also tells you when this is the Arahat Atharsata. Here's the portion where Billy inputs something, but the rest is Arahat Atharsata. It's not a personality cult thing, and we're too used to that. So all people want to give away their power to saviors and saints and gods. So he doesn't do that. He just teaches by example. Just make up your own mind. Oh, I'm not going to solve your problems. He was approached by people from the Ukraine in letter and in phone calls a year ago or so, whatever it was. Help us, please. We've got this Nazi. He's going to destroy our country. He said, I can't do anything. I can't. And Aaron can't do it. It's yours. You have to figure out how to take your power back. And it was shortly after that interaction that a big armor-plated Mercedes limousine with the Ukraine diplomatic plates came up with 5 men in it. We put a drone out on the property, 4-6 propeller drone with cameras to film the whole place, and they wouldn't leave when asked to. And then subsequent to that, the Swiss Air Force has been harassing, and the police powers, overflights of helicopters and planes. I'm just giving you the less romantic picture here that happens when you happen to be the last guy to bring the truth to a world which may destroy itself. It's up to us. And even now, they have been getting monitoring from otherwise invisible drones from another race, one of the 3 races that Billy has spoken about, that is underground. So there's lots of stuff to ponder here, but Billy's the 7th and final prophet, long foretold. Here's the same teaching, folks. One more time, take a crack at it before you're dust, so here it is.
Very in-depth.
Very interesting, especially with that contact with the Ukraine being only a year or so ago. Wow, I mean, it's pretty wild, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
I was going to ask if he's still in conscious contact with all his folks.
Meets with them all the time. And we just published one of the most recent contact, which was, I don't know if it was March 31st or something like that. Meets with them at least once a week. And, if you read, you can get them through my blog or through Future Mankind or anything. You read the conversations they've had about what's coming with this war. There's places where they don't fill it out any longer and tell you, because they don't want to scare people. They don't think it's a good idea, because there's certain things now that people can't stop, because humankind didn't. And to tell people what's coming now won't be helpful. We can figure it out for ourselves. All we have to do is read the Hanok prophecies and a few other things and watch what's going on in the world and consider cause, effect. Do this, get that. Some causes create multiple effects, set many things in motion for better or for worse.